What's going on, everybody? Dr. Thompson here with Exemplify Health Center, your Wellness Way affiliate, Yorkville, Illinois. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday evening. I just finished up with patients and wanted to come to you guys live and just give you a little bit of insight, and also going to give you my opinion. I get this question asked quite a bit. Dr. Nate, artificial and natural immunity, which provides the best protection? Now, I would tell you this, I'm biased just because I believe that what God already provided for us and put inside our body is more than enough. Man has never been able to replicate and to even exceed what I would call the Adam prototype. Right? The Adam prototype. We can't make the Adam prototype any better, especially. All right. So I'm going to give you my opinion on natural versus artificial immunity, which provides the best protection. And I'm going to give my opinion on it again, but I'm also going to show you research, research that comes from Duke University, that comes from Tel Aviv University, that comes from, I believe I have some from Stanford University as well. And so, these are some pretty smart people, and I want to give you their perspective and their take on natural and artificial immunity, okay? If you guys saw the video that I did on Friday evening, and I talked about some pre and mid and post lab work, go back and watch that video. That video is absolutely blowing up, and people are absolutely astounded. This went over and we did some actual immune system testing, a lot deeper than what you get on your annual blood work. This is an actual test that looks at all the different subtypes of your white blood cells, including things like CD4, CD8, natural killer cells, all of those other cells that are so important when it comes to viral infections and things like that. Had a lot of encouraging comments. Also had some pretty interesting, I should say, comments from people. And I will just say this: if you cannot provide an argument and you attack the person and you don't attack the argument, we don't argue with you. We just hit that delete and ban button, just so you know that. All right. So guys, go back and watch that video. It is a really insightful video. And again, all I'm telling you is this is what I see and this is what I found, and here is my opinion. A lot of times when people come back and they try to attack you, usually that means that you are over the target. All right. So let's do another one that might rile a little bit of feathers and talk about natural versus artificial immunity, okay? So if you guys are just joining me, make sure you guys say hi. Let me know where you're watching from, and also, guys, make sure you share this video because I doubt that you have seen some of this research that I'm actually going to go over with you right now, okay? Now, before I do that, I want to show you something that comes from some CDC statistics because, I just like to ask questions, and I never take anything from face value. In fact, throughout my whole education, I never really took things for face value because, guys, I will tell you, no matter where you are learning from, and if you go back and look at your education, whether it's high school, whether it's college, even postgraduate, there are times I'm like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why are you teaching that? And you'll realize there's a lot of things that I learned in college that were just completely wrong, okay? Or completely wrong. I will tell you, in college, what was completely wrong was nutrition. Holy cow. Oh my goodness. That was bad. That was really bad. And guys, one of the reasons why is that a lot of things that you learn in school, by the time you learn it, the people who are out actually researching, and the people who are out that are doing the clinical work, they're 15, 20 years behind before it ends up actually in school. That's why education is so overblown. So I always ask questions, and here's one of the questions that I always wanted to ask, or I always ask, I thought, well, this doesn't make sense. So, and people have asked this question as well. This comes from CDC data, and this actually shows right here the hospitalizations and flu deaths, okay? So if you could follow this down, you look at the hospitalization of the flu, 290,000, 140,000, 571,000, 347, 591, 276, 497,000, 808,000, 491,000, 2019, 2020, 405,000 hospitalizations for the flu, and then 2021, 2,038. That is so interesting, isn't it? Boy, the flu just disappeared. 400,000 to 200,000. And I know what people are saying, and if you can you can come up with some kind of good reason, don't tell me about masks. Oh my goodness, we're wearing masks. Well then, why was there so many other types of illnesses that were going on? Or because people weren't wearing masks is why you had so many other illnesses going on, and then why did you have so many less flu hospitalizations? If you look at flu deaths, estimated 22,000 down to 100 in a matter of 1 year. It just disappeared. You guys ever thought that was interesting? Like, wow, that's really interesting. Why on earth is that? Okay, is this something that's really happening, or maybe they're not testing for it, or maybe there's actually something else that it could be? Now, I found something that was really interesting. I spoke about this on a few lives a couple weeks back, but I want to reiterate this as well. And I'll give you my opinion on why the flu absolutely just disappeared. And it has to do with this. This came out from the CDC, July 21st, 2021. You see what the title of this says. Lab alert, changes to the CDC RT-PCR for SARS-CoV-2 testing. Okay, so this is the PCR test that they do. That they basically put into your nose. Hopefully they don't go too deep and damage your cribriform plate. But they put that into your nose in order to get some RNA. And then what they do is they'll amplify it up to 40 times, went down to 25 times. It might be up to 40 times again. And so this is the test that they use. And here's what the CDC, they put an alert out, and here's what they said. December 31st, 2021. So this is what they say as far as that specific type of testing. So on or after December 31st, 2021, they said the CDC recommends clinical laboratories and testing sites that have been using the CDC 2019 nCoV RT PCR assay select and begin their transition to another FDA authorized COVID test. So what they said is they said, we recommend not to be using this PCR test in order to identify COV, et cetera, please use another FDA authorized COVID-19 test, okay? Here's what's interesting, and this is the reason why. Here's what they said. Because we want to consider adoption of a multiplex method that can facilitate detection and differentiate, you ready for it, of SARS-CoV-2 and influenza viruses. Can you believe that, guys? Please share that right now. This is what they said. They said the testing, the preferred method of testing that we're using right now cannot differentiate between SARS-CoV-2 and the flu. And now you guys can understand why the flu just disappeared last year and this year as well. Isn't that interesting? And so the question I always ask is, well, do we really have an epidemic right now? Okay. Not to say that it's not, that there aren't people that are suffering, no doubt about it. But the question is do we really have an epidemic, or do we have a case-demic, and do we have a lot of people who really just do have the flu? So that's a question that you always have to ask, all right? Now, let me talk to you about natural immunity and artificial immunity. This is going to blow you out of the water. Stanford medicine, okay? So Stanford study ties milder COVID-19 symptoms to prior run-ins with other coronaviruses. This is what I talked about on Saturday with the 50 people who were crammed into my office, and we talked about how the immune system works, and we talked about natural immunity. We talked about how people get infected. We talked about other things as well that I cannot say, but this is what's really interesting. Stanford University, they made an observation, guys. This is where science starts. Science starts by making an observation. So they said this: in COVID-19 patients whose symptoms were mild, okay? This is why people get it, and they're like, guys, I actually have a positive antibody test for the COVID antibodies, for IgG antibodies, and I honestly don't even know when I got it. I remember over a year and a half ago, about 20 months ago, I spiked a fever on Friday night. Sunday morning, the fever was gone, and I had a little bit of chest congestion. That's all that I had. That has been the last time that I actually was sick. But they found that in COVID-19 patients whose symptoms were mild, Stanford researchers found that they were more likely than sicker patients to have signs of prior infection by similar, less virulent coronaviruses. So what are coronaviruses? These are cold viruses. This is what they found. That if you actually had previous exposure to another coronavirus, that if you had exposure to this, you typically had much milder symptoms. What does that actually tell you? I want you guys to make the connection. The connection is exposure is actually needed. So the whole idea, guys, of covering our face, of dousing our children with Purell, of socially distancing and hiding out and staying away from everybody, what they actually found is they said, no. You need exposure to other viruses, and actually exposure to other coronaviruses gave you a milder case when exposed to COVID-19. Who would have thought that, right? And what that means is when you're exposed to the whole virus, other viruses, you're exposed to other viruses, and not just a spike protein, but the whole entire virus, that there actually will have a better immune response to being exposed to other viruses that are actually similar. Now, here's what they said. These immune cells are better equipped to mobilize quickly against SARS-CoV-2. The immune cells in question are called killer T cells. And what killer T cells do is they roam through the blood and the lymph system, they park in tissues, and they carry out stop and frisk operation on resident cells. Basically, what these cells are is they're present within the body, and as they come into contact with other cells, they're really trying to identify foreign versus self. Foreign versus self. You have a cell infected with a virus, it's designed to kill it. You have a cell that is actually turned cancerous, it will flag it on its membrane, and that killer T cell, its function is to kill virally infected cells, and its function is to kill cancer cells. This is why we test these things all the time. So, the study published July 1st in Science Immunology showed that killer T cells taken from the sickest COVID-19 patients exhibit fewer signs of having had previous run-ins with common cold coronaviruses. Can you guys imagine that? But it gets even better, all right? So, comparing SARS-CoV-2 natural immunity to vaccine induced immunity. By the way, there's no such thing as immunity. And I said this at the talk. There's no such thing as immunity. There's only immune system sufficiency through exposure, okay? I want you to think about it. If you get the chicken pox, you're not immune to the chicken pox. Think about when your immune system, if it would tank for whatever reason, we don't need to go into all the reasons why it could tank, but if your immune system tanks, think of what you can actually break out with, and it's called shingles. There are some viruses that will persist in your body indefinitely. So think shingles, the chicken pox, it's a varicella virus. Think Epstein-Barr virus, and think about the gift that keeps on giving. It's called herpes. You guys realize that these things will persist in your body as soon as if you had any kind of exposure. So here is what they said in this article. Natural immunity, meaning you have gone through the proper methods of infection. Might say, well, what on earth is the proper methods of infection? Infection comes from first your barriers, then your natural immune system or your innate immune system, and then your adaptive immune system. So I want you to think about what we do anytime we bypass the barriers, and you know what I'm talking about, by bypassing all the barriers and getting something directly into the body, you're actually doing it backwards. Remember, most of your immune system is sitting at the barriers because it wants to fight the battle within the barriers. It wants to fight the battle outside of the body, not inside of the body, which is why it fights the battle in the lungs, why it wants to fight the battle within the gastrointestinal system. It wants to fight the battle on the skin, and it doesn't want to fight the battle within the tissues, within the vascular supply, or within the blood. It wants to fight the hardest battle within the barriers. That's why having healthy barriers is so important. So they said natural immunity confers longer lasting and stronger protection against infection, symptomatic disease, and hospitalization caused by the Delta variant SARS-CoV-2 compared to the BNT612B2, which is the Pfizer biotech, two-dose vaccine-induced immunity. So that's what they said. They made an observation. And they said, we think that natural immunity is actually stronger. Okay, and these is the reference right up here. Now, this has not been peer reviewed, but I'm going to tell you something. A lot of what your people in charge are also not providing any peer-reviewed evidence either. You can't have it both ways. Now, Duke Medical School, here's what they said. Singapore scientists uncover SARS-CoV-2 specific T-cell immunity in recovered COVID-19 and SARS patients and in uninfected individuals. Okay? So here's what they found. They found, and you can actually measure this, you can test for this, they found that SARS-CoV-2 specific T cells are present in all recovered COVID-19 patients, but here's what they also found too. They also found that they actually had these specific T cells that were sensitive to SARS-CoV-2 in people that actually didn't have the SARS-CoV-2 infection, which actually goes back to the point of what they made is saying previous exposure to other coronaviruses actually will provide some level of immunity and protection. Now, who is talking about that? No one. We're not talking about any of this, but they're actually saying. So, infection and exposure to coronaviruses induce long-lasting memory T cells, which could help in the management of the current pandemic. But are we doing anything in regards to that? Nope. They give you one option and one option only, okay? And it doesn't matter if it makes you sick. It doesn't matter if you have a reaction. It doesn't matter if anything happens. It's clear across the board. Everyone has to do it. Now, I made a post actually on my personal page, and I talked about, I have the hashtag called mandate burpees, all right? Mandate burpees. What if instead we mandated burpees, meaning everyone had to do 100 burpees every single day, and you had 2 weeks to be able to do 100 burpees within 10 minutes. And if you didn't, you lost your job, you got fired, you were publicly shamed, whatever it might be. But you had to get these burpees done 104 times in under 10 minutes. Could you imagine the outcry that people would have? They would say, well, I'm too old, I can't do burpees. And what if I said, doesn't matter? Doesn't matter, you have to do it. But I got a bad knee. Doesn't matter, you got to do it. But I can't even get myself down on the ground. Doesn't matter, you got to do it. Well, I can't, once I get on the ground, I can't get back up. Doesn't matter, you still have to do it. Well, what if I get hurt? Doesn't matter, you still have to do it. Well, what if I get injured? It doesn't matter, you still have to do it. What if I have asthma? Doesn't matter, you still have to do it. Well, what if I am sick? That doesn't matter, you still have to do it. And you can imagine the public backlash, because people would have a lot more public backlash because doing 100 burpees as quickly as possible for time is really hard. It's very taxing. I never ever want to do it. I rarely do it because I hate it that much. But you would see the backlash because everyone say, well, not everyone can do burpees. Not everyone can tolerate it. There's people, different ages, different body types. There's young, there's old. How on earth can you mandate something the same clear across the board? And my point is this. I said, well, if we all did it, we would all be better. Actually, when you look at the number of people with type 2 diabetes, you look at it's well known that obesity causes a lowered immune response and an antibody response to COVID, et cetera, et cetera. Man, if we all did that and we worked on that, I don't think it would make us worse. I think it would actually make us a whole heck of a lot better. But even despite that, I would always say, no, you shouldn't mandate exercise. You shouldn't have to do it. Actually, people should want to, okay? They should want to. They should have so much self-respect for their bodies and self-respect for their temple that they actually want to make exercise as part of something that is needed for healthy longevity, okay? But you certainly can't mandate that, especially. So Duke University actually talks about having a T-cell response to other coronaviruses. Unbelievable, okay? Now guys, this one right here, this one is something that may get me banned, and I'm okay with it, all right? So if I happen to, you just don't see our page anymore, we will set up a Telegram account, all right? So join us on Telegram. But this is what's interesting, because this comes out of, and you may have actually already seen this, but this comes out of Tel Aviv University in Israel, and this involves 76,000 people. This is not a small study. This does not involve one person. This does not involve 1,000 people. It's 76,000 people. And here's what Tel Aviv University said, their conclusion, okay? They said, again, natural immunity is superior to vaccination, okay? They said it. And here's what they found. They found that fully vaccinated but uninfected people were significantly more likely to have a breakthrough COVID infection than people who had previously been infected and recovered from the disease. So what they found, they didn't get sick, fully vaccinated, significantly more likely to have a breakthrough infection than people who had previously been infected and were able to recover from the disease, okay? This is this whole idea that this is now a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It is actually not true. Reason why it's not true is if you go back to what the CDC, how they came up with this conclusion, is that they were actually measuring, calling unvaccinated people from January through June. They were taking the statistics from a couple of states, January through June. I want you to think about it. In January, hardly anyone had the vaccine, okay? February, a little bit more. March, April, May, it got progressively more, but they were taking statistics from people who actually didn't have any access whatsoever to have the vaccine. But here's what's interesting too, is you say, well, yeah, but what about the statistics now? I want to give you something that may make a lot of sense to you. If someone goes in for having COV, et cetera, symptoms, then if they go in and they are hospitalized, then the hospital doesn't have to ask you if you have had the vaccine or not. Now, if, for example, you go in and you go into a hospital group, let's say it's Rush here around this area, and you go to a Rush doctor who you have all of their medical information on their electronic health record, then they can pull it up either from the doctor to the hospital, and they will see, yep, so-and-so have their vaccine, they're vaccinated, okay? But if you went and you got your vaccine at some kind of walk-in clinic, at CVS, at Walgreens, you went to the parking lot at your church and you rolled up your sleeve, stuck your arm out, and you got it, then it's not on that public record, and it's up to the hospital to actually ask or not whether you have had that. So if they don't ask, then you are considered unvaccinated, okay? Does that make a whole lot of sense? So they found that it was the people who had already had a previous infection, the ones who weren't having any kind of breakthrough illness. Now, here's what they found from Tel Aviv University. After 3 months, the likelihood of symptomatic infection among double vaccinated using Pfizer versus previously infected naturally. They found that those people had 27 times higher the amount of infection, okay? 27 times higher the amount of infection. And this is what they found with 76,000 people in this study. Isn't that amazing? It begs the question. Guys, a proper immune response demands the whole virus and not just a spike protein. Let me say that again. A proper immune response demands the whole virus and not just the spike protein. A proper immune system response requires the barriers, a response by the innate immune system, and then a response by the adaptive immune system in that order. So if you have gone in reverse order, which stimulates the adaptive immune system with just a spike, a single sensitive, highly specific protein, what happens if it changes? You no longer have an antibody response to that anymore, which then leaves you to having a different type of infection just based on if something actually changes just a little bit. But the people who are doing the best are the ones who have had a proper immune response and had the whole virus and exposure to it, even if it was a previous coronavirus, just a cold virus. So you guys see why exposure is so important. You guys see why wearing a mask is so, I don't understand it. You guys see why shaking people's hands, why hugging them, and sharing bacteria, sharing viruses, all the while having a proper lifestyle that's going to help you have a strong immune response. This is what we teach in this office. is how can we build up and have a proper immune system response? Well, what can cause that immune system response to go down? There's a lot of different reasons, but I will tell you this, guys. The overarching theme always comes down to chronic inflammation. The overarching theme is chronic inflammation. Here's what's interesting. And you ask, what is killing us in the United States? This is my opinion. This is medicine's opinion. We actually agree it's inflammation. Think of what is linked to inflammation. Hormone imbalances, autoimmune condition, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, thyroid disease, infertility, cancer, the inability to be able to lose weight or weight loss resistance, all can be tied to chronic inflammation. It all can be tied. We agree with that, but where do we differ? Where we differ is how we handle it. So I want you to know something. Where medicine wants to do is they want to cover up, or they want to knock out the body's response to inflammation, where I would actually say, in the Wellness Way approach, we say, well, that's interesting. Let's find why the body is having this inflammatory response. Let's figure out what's causing it. Let's figure out what's causing it. Let's work on removing it. And let's then honor what we already have in our body, which is the ability to be able to heal. Let's use that to be able to heal. Just like I said at the beginning, what God already put inside of us, in my opinion, is more than enough. We have not been able to find something better than the Adam protocol. So maybe we should work on how to maximize our body's innate, God-given ability to be able to heal. And I guarantee when you start doing that, that's when you start getting people well. I guarantee it. That's when you start getting people well. Now, coming up, if you're watching in the Yorkville area, our next inflammation talk is coming up Tuesday, October 12th at 6 p.m. Usually we run till about 7:15. Sometimes we have some time for questions afterwards as well. But we're going to show you inflammation and where to start looking and some first steps that you can do to start to handle it using what we use in our office. The only reason why people get sick is because the body gets overwhelmed with physical inflammation, chemical inflammation, and inflammation from mental stress. That's really the only places that it can actually come from. And so if you're from the area, guys, please make sure that you register for this Tuesday, October 12th at 6 o'clock sharp. It is an unbelievable talk. I absolutely love doing this most because it helps you to see how we see things from a different perspective. And if you're from that area, go up to the top of our page and you can call us or you can reach out to us on Facebook Messenger and we'll get you registered for that in-person event. So guys, if you learned something about natural versus artificial immunity, make sure that you share this, okay? And I'm so glad that I see people on there that are watching right now, because I know for a fact that some of you are under the gun when it comes to your job, when it comes to your employment. I thank you for standing up. I thank you for being strong. But the reason why I do this is that those people who are saying, gosh, man, I don't know if I'm going to hold the line. Hopefully this will help one person be confident in their decision to hold the line. So guys, be well. Make sure you share this video. I appreciate you all. I love you all. And I'll check in with you sometime soon when I have time. This is a crazy week. All right, guys, be well, and we'll talk to you guys soon.